Hello there, you beautiful soul, and welcome back to another Culture Talk segment with your host, Rebecca Munoz of Cultured Society. I am here with yet another special guest. And what's so interesting about these conversations is that there are a few people that I've brought on that know each other, but nobody knew about these conversations that were happening while they're happening. And so I'm sending out the same questions to every person on this panel. And every conversation has seemed to be so different and unique. Although we are a part of one body, meaning we all have the same components that create our humanness, right? We all have a different and specific DNA code, specific for our own personal journey. And it's so important to embrace our humanness and also to embrace other people as they are, as we're journeying through our own specific purpose. And so every guest that I've brought on, I've had the opportunity to live life with at some phase of my life. And although I've gone through many different phases, I feel like the universe always conspires to bring you back full circle and to connect with those people that are in alignment with themselves as well as an alignment with you. And so these conversations are really brought to you to inspire you to live out your own personal purpose. And if you don't know what that is, get in alignment with it. It's never too late to create something new for yourself. I always like to say that every single day is an opportunity to create something new. And so today I have this special guest. Her name is Reena Ray, and she's actually sister of Sharmila Ray, the person that I brought in about 2 weeks ago, and they've had the opportunity to work together on many projects. I have had the opportunity to live life with these sisters since 2007, although our journeys went like on opposite directions, but we've had the opportunity to continue to be in each other's lives, even though we're in different cities. So with this, I introduced Reena Ray. So Reena is a costumer, designer, assistant, a world traveler, a jokester with a work ethic, a sister, a lover, and rarely a fighter. She has worked alongside designers for Beyonce and Keanu Reeves and has worked as a costume assistant for films such as Jumanji, Dunkirk, and Bill and Ted 3. She has also helped costume assist on shows such as HBO's Insecure, Showtime's Shameless, and the NBC hit series This Is Us. Last year, Reena was able to flex her creative muscle by costume designing the 1979 based period short film Devotee. When she's not dressing the cast, she loves to travel and to volunteer her time at medical missions throughout the Philippines. From Paris to Thailand, Reena loves exploring and traveling and absorbing the diverse cultures this world has to offer. Her ability to relate and joke with others is what has helped her gain friends across the globe. She is currently a costume coordinator on Showtime's The L Word, Generation Q. Her goal is to eventually work her way into a writer's room while transitioning to the big screen. Daily exercise and cooking yummy recipes with her boyfriend Darryl are the activities that have kept her sane during this crazy global pandemic. So with this, thank you so much, Reena, for joining me today on this multicultural conversation.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm so hyped to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I actually want to share some stories. Reena has been well, so Reena and Shar and I met in 2007. Actually, Reena, I think I met you a year after I met
Yeah.
Shar. And we were all, well, Reena, you were living in Long Beach, weren't you?
Yeah, I was still in Long Beach because I was just finishing up like school in Cal
Yeah.
State Long Beach. Yeah.
So I was living on the west side of LA. Reena was living in Long Beach, and Shar was living in the west side of LA too. And I'm telling you that it's so interesting when we allow ourselves to really just explore and experiment and experience with life. You have the ability to really just enjoy all aspects of life, even when you're going through turmoil. And
Mhm.
we've had an opportunity to live life together and travel together. Reena is probably one of the funniest people I've ever had the opportunity to meet. And it's so cool to be able to experience, her personality, her characteristics, and even just the journey that she's gone through to get to where she's at right now. I mean, this is quite an accomplishment, Reena, to be able to work on all of these projects.
I know. I was like, what do I write? And it was funny because I actually had Char's like, do you want to just write my bio for me? Because I don't really do those type of things. And then she kind of sent me some stuff. And then I was like, let me just look over my resume. And I was like, I guess I have done some stuff, but it's like, it's always kind of weird to like, talk about yourself sometimes. But but you should also be comfortable with it because it is yourself. So like, yeah,
Totally, totally. And Rena, when Shar and I were on our conversation, she was talking about how, man, I'm just so grateful that you see me the way that you do, because sometimes I feel like I'm so basic. And I'm like, girl, you are so far from basic. And so when I thought about bringing you on to this conversation, I was like, this girl is like so comfortable in her own skin, and she's just so radiant in just the way that she presents herself. And I really encourage you to continue to do these types of conversations, because it's really in your element, and talking
hmm
about yourself should be something that we do constantly, not in
hmm
a narcissistic way, right? Not thinking that you're better than anybody, but it's so important for us to really self-assess and to understand that we are just bomb diggity.
right? I forget about that sometimes, but I was like, do you know what? I'm not too bad. I'm like, and you're not too bad either, right? So like, we okay. You gotta just dust your shoulders off sometimes. You're like,
Yes. So yes, so now we really get to dive into your mind and to understand really how you live out your purpose every single day and what your perspectives are, because it's so relevant, especially in this time that we're living in, where there's so much separation and segregation.
Mhm,
And really, there are no differences between us, even when there's a difference in color, where there's a difference in gender, or even in philosophies and perspectives. And I think that it's so important for us to bring these conversations to the table, because there's not enough people having them. And
mhm.
also tend to live in a very superficial world. Rena, you live in
Oh,
LA.
yes, very superficial. Yes,
Exactly.
especially in costumes, very superficial.
Exactly. And so it's so important for us to really be real about how we feel, real about how we live, and who we are as individuals. Because, oftentimes we get so immersed in TV, what's happening
Mhm,
on reality TV, when in reality, that's not reality.
mhm,
Get real with ourselves. And I believe that it's so important, especially for people like you who are in it, you know what I mean, are in that superficial world. And I don't think that you're superficial at all. You're one of the realest people. You and Shar are one of the realest people that I've met, especially while in my time in LA.
mhm.
So with this being said, I want to go into my first question of Reno. What is your life's philosophy?
Whew. Um, I know. I was looking over your questions. I was like, wow, we're about to have some Oprah moments. I was like, but I don't know. I feel like it's almost like a collection of like Instagram quotes or something. It's kind of like, I don't know. I really believe in like just staying positive and also just like, I don't know, it's like a mix of like work hard, play hard, or like even like just kind of making the best of any situation, just like, and I don't know, it's hard to just sum it up into one sentence, but it just, I don't know, it's just kind of just like, yeah, work with what you got and make the most of it, and just like, I always try to find the best out of every situation, whether it's good or bad. Even if a situation is bad, it's kind of like it's still a learning situation. It's like, well, now you learn what you don't like and what you don't want to be around. So, you know, I guess kind of just make the most out of what you got.
Absolutely. And it's so funny. yesterday before the conversation that I had with Bonnie Maley, she is a life balancing coach in Phoenix. She's originally from Chicago, which is so
Oh,
interesting.
wow.
I've been running into a lot of people that are from the Midwest. And she was giving me an example, not in the actual call, it was right before the call that she mentioned to me about the movie Pollyanna and how people used to make fun of Pollyanna because she was always the person who was so optimistic. And
Mm-hmm.
regardless of any experience that she had, she always had a bright side of looking at things, the higher perspective, right? And I know that you've traveled a lot, Rena, and you've had an opportunity to move around and to
Mm-hmm.
experience so many different cultures and not just your own, because I know that you're blended with cultures
Mm-hmm.
as well. But I don't. Wouldn't you agree that having the experiences to travel and interact and communicate with so many different types of people gives you a higher perspective to be able to do that? Would you just
Definitely, definitely. I feel like traveling is such a good thing for just the soul too, because it's like you're able to like get yourself out of your comfort zone, you know, because like you can only learn so much sometimes from being in the same environment. That like the way for you to like evolve is to kind of like get yourself out of your comfort zone and see how other people are living and like eat the food and like just embrace the culture, you know. Like I that's what I really love about traveling, and that's what I really miss. I really miss traveling right now, like, and I know I could probably do it, but I'm still a little scared, but like it's not the same quite right now. So you just gotta also take those memories and like hold on to, like, I was like looking at my Facebook memories. I was like, oh, this time like 2 years ago I was in the Philippines, or like, you know, it's kind of crazy, you know. But you gotta also, it's nice because then you could cherish those moments for times like this when maybe you can't go anywhere, and you know,
and there's
like,
so many people, I mean, wouldn't you agree that even in LA, like LA is its own world, and oftentimes people don't even leave the parameters of the
mm-hmm,
city because there's so much that's offered there. People think that they don't have to leave.
mm-hmm.
So the fact, when did you start traveling? How, what age?
Well, I mean, at a young age, we were always traveling. Like, I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and then, like, basically a month after I was born, we moved to Miami. And then after Miami, we moved to Chicago. And then we stayed maybe like 3 years, I think, in Miami, and then another 3 or 4 years in Chicago. And then from there, we moved to California, to Sacramento in 1990. So then I was like in Sacramento for the majority of my life, and I've been in California for the most of my life. But then I did a lot of traveling also, like in my 20s, because my friend Victor, I mean, he still is a flight attendant. When it was Virgin America, and I was his flight companion, which was like awesome because we would like go everywhere. And we would go to, like, one time we took a trip from like, we went from the Philippines to like, for the medical mission. He came with me, and then after that, we are like, well, let's go to Thailand. And then after Thailand, we went to Switzerland. And what was crazy was that we went from Thailand to Switzerland with totally two different like climates, and it like we were wearing like our flip flops, and we're getting on the plane, and they're like, no, what are you doing? And we're like, what? And they're like, it was like the Switzerland like airlines, and they're like, no, you can't wear that. And we're like, what? And it was because they're like, we're representatives of the, because we're flying as like, what do you call it, when we're on reserve, kind of. So then
Mhm.
we're still considered like representatives of that airlines, I guess. And then they're just like, no, you need to wear something else. And we're like, what? We're coming from a really hot place, but sure. And then we like changed, which was actually a good idea because it was extremely cold there. But it's just kind of funny, like how you see how people decide to deal with things in each place. Like, and it
Absolutely.
really opens your eye on different things. And even like in India, I mean, India is a very interesting place because it could be really beautiful, and it could also be kind of like really sad too when you like go around to different places, and it's like you have the really highs, and then you also have the lows as well. So it's like quite a blend there as well.
And do you think that that has allowed you to be a lot? Well, moving around is not easy because a lot of people don't do it. In fact, a
Hmm.
majority of people stay in the same place for majority of their life. So do you feel like moving around and traveling has allowed you to be more adaptable and to expand your perspective when it comes to even accepting or embracing things as they come?
Yes, definitely. I feel like it has made me more adaptable to my like environment, and like I've learned to like make friends like pretty fast and just like be friendly with everyone, because it's like you never know where we're going to be next, and just it's great because then you'll like meet new people in different places, and then you could keep in touch. Now it's so much easier to keep in touch with people, and like you know that's how you learn about the culture. And sometimes when you meet people when you're traveling, they'll take you to different places that you would have never known, that you might not be able to find in Lonely Planet, like you get a little off the grid, so.
Absolutely. So, how do you think that that philosophy that you talked about earlier, where just looking at the bright side of things, regardless of what happens, how do you think that that's evolved over the years? Have you always been that way?
I do feel like I've always kind of stayed positive about things, and I feel like it has helped get me to the next level in most cases, because it's like not everything's going to be ideal or how you've like dreamed it to be, but like I was saying before, you got to make the most with what you got. And also you got to realize sometimes things might not always go your way, but if you stay positive, like it kind of feels like it is, and I just like, yeah, I just think it is good to just stay positive. And sometimes I'm all about like killing people with kindness because it might actually annoy them a little bit more. But I remember my first job was at In-N-Out Burger, and like they were so big on customer service, and I think a lot of that actually started there. And you would think like, oh, it's just like flipping burgers. What are we going to learn here? But I actually learned to have like such a good work ethic from them, and like because they're really big about like, if it wasn't for the customer, you wouldn't be getting a check. And we're like, oh, true. And like we should actually be grateful that people want to come here, so that kind of stuck with me like throughout my work experiences.
How do you think that your circle of influence has influenced the way that you live and think today?
My circle of influences, oh, I feel like it's definitely just evolved through time, because it's like, you know just like with time, things always start changing. Like you'll have different friends in different places, and I feel like it's almost like the universe knows when you need certain people around you, like they'll they'll show themselves when the time is right, but I feel like a lot of my core friends are still around. Like I was saying, like my friend Victor, he's great. We'll always like travel the world, and of course my sister, and like you, and like I don't know, it's just, but what's good is that like I've noticed the core friends that I do have, it's like I've noticed that they're continuing to evolve as well. It's like, I mean, it's not like I fall out of being friends with my old friends. Like I'm still talk to a lot of different people, but the ones that I stay closer to, it's like you could constantly see their growth as well. And we're always continuing to like, help influence one another, or kind of like, you know, keep each other like up on what's hip or what's new, or, like just always trying to find new ways to like learn what to do things in like the best way, or I don't know.
How has your upbringing, being multicultural and having a Filipino mom and an Indian dad, influenced the way that you think and operate? Because I'm sure that you and Shar went the opposite direction of what what they wanted for you, right?
Oh, definitely. And I mean, especially having a Filipino mom and an Indian dad. It's like my dad's a structural engineer and my mom's a Filipino nurse, like surprise, surprise, right? But I mean, it was always kind of like, oh, so you're going to do nursing, right? And I'm like, no, why?" And then like I actually had no clue what I wanted to do with my life for the longest time. But what's funny is that my degree when I went to Cal State Long Beach is actually in psychology. And I was like, oh, okay, like, maybe I could, be like a marriage and family like therapist or something. And, I still kind of think about that. Like maybe I could eventually go back and get my master's, but then I wasn't like 200% sure. And then I was working with my sister, and then we started to do like film stuff on the side. And when we did our own documentary, You Follow, with my friend Nisha Grayson, she, that really took me in a different like direction, kind of, on like, because that was like started off as just like a passion project, and we kind of went to India and was like looking for Anisha's mom just like randomly through the jungles of India, like, and we had no clue what we were doing. It was totally guerrilla style, and we never really knew how to like really work in a production, but we just made it work then, and I've definitely learned a lot more now that I've like been on stage and see how like the big boys do it. But like that was also a lot of fun then too, and I wouldn't take any of that back, because like we've learned so much. And also like having to shoot in a place like India, like secretly like shooting on our like, and we learned how to like ride like we had like little Honda Dios and like little like motorcycles, and I would never ride a motorcycle here. But what was funny is like that's the only choice you had out there for us, that it would be affordable for us to like get around. So we're like, okay, let's learn how to ride bikes and like shoot on a camera at the same time. So you got to live and learn.
How did your parents feel about you not going into the career path that they wanted for you? And even through your evolution of trying to figure out what it was that you wanted to do?
I feel like it took me a very long time to figure out what I wanted to do. Like some people like already know straight off the bat, like Shar, like my sister, she's always like been talking about how she wants to direct and she wants to direct. I'm like, okay, go for it. But then like it really took me a long time. Like even when I started off in production, I started off in like art department, and I was like helping to put the set together and set dress and put all like, the pictures up in the background and do things like that. But then and I was always curious about costumes, so now I'm in costumes now. But I just feel like through time, things start falling into place. And like when I was on set, like I couldn't imagine going back to doing any of my other jobs, and it's always started feeling right. And I've worked in a bank, and I've like worked at other jobs like that before, and I mean all of those jobs, I feel like you always get something out of each job that you have. It's still like you'll learn something new and that you could always take on to the next place. But it's also like I was like, it didn't I wasn't like thrilled to like go count someone else's money. Like I was like, okay, that's great. But I mean, that's good. I know how to count money fast now. But like, other than that, I was like, I don't feel like it was like an intrinsic reward at the end of the day. So
Mhm.
it's always nice now to like kind of be in a production and see how a story is told from like start to finish, when you have like nothing and there's a room full of nothing, and then we just make it happen. Like you built, even with like costumes, like we're helping to build these characters. So it's been a lot of fun, I feel like.
Speaking about the work that you're doing right now, and talking about alignment and how it actually feels right for you now versus where you were doing other jobs before and it didn't. Do you feel like now the line of work that you do infects, and I use the word infects because oftentimes we're infected with negativity. I mean, especially what we experienced last year, with a lot of the losses that we had, and this whole COVID thing. It really brought a lot of fear and a lot of negativity in our society. But you, as an individual, do you feel that what you do infects our society or our world with positivity?
I definitely do. I feel like usually, yeah, like especially working in the entertainment industry, it does like infect a lot of people about what is done and what is seen on camera, and it's not always in a positive light. I know it could go both ways, but um also seeing a lot of, since there's been a lot of time to actually watch a lot more things now these days too, especially for the first 6 months. There was like a lot of different documentaries out, and just seeing what it has been produced, because like it's funny because I'm when you're on a production, your hours are very long and you have like 12-hour days. So like I haven't really had time to like watch anything or see what has been produced. And it was kind of nice to like step back and have that time to like see what has been done, and like what the content that has been coming out now. I feel like it's been good and it's been great, like especially things like on Netflix, because it's been like a lot of blended stories right now. And I think it's been so good to see stories that I have never, would have thought that I would ever see before. Like I've seen this, I think it's called is it Never Have I Ever? Or it was like this one, I think it was produced by Mindy Kaling. And it was just so nice to see like a story of a little Indian girl and her like upbringing. And because like you never see those stories being told, and I feel like there is starting to be like a little bit of return of the stories that are being told um, in Hollywood, which is finally it's happening like little by little. But yeah.
Aside from the actual production piece, right? Because I really want to understand how you play a part, like your specific role, how you play a part in the production process, and even just on a day-to-day basis, how you infect people. Because I'm gonna tell you, Rena, like I always used to say, girl, you need to be a comedian because you're hilarious. And there's so many things that oftentimes we're so distracted by, where we can be distracted by all the negativity that's around us. But because you yourself have been able to see light in a lot of your situations, even in your messed up situations, because I know you've had them,
Mm-hmm.
so much transition and movement, where it's inevitable to experience a lot of adversity, a lot of opposition with your parents. And I know
Mm-hmm.
because I grew up in a Mexican household, and my dad, although we didn't come from money, my dad always aspired for me to be an attorney or a doctor, or something that's deemed really successful, right, in
Right.
our society. So how do you play a part in how your days unfold by bringing more positivity?
Well, I just feel like I don't know. I feel like it kind of has always been in me. Like I can't. It's even hard for me to explain because I've always just kind of been like a cheerleader, like naturally. I feel, and like and in a way, I do feel like sometimes people tend to like see the negative side of things, and I'm like, why? Like, you're just like that's just more weight on you, Like, why are you gonna just like and like I feel like sometimes people like say things to throw you off just to kind of like fuck with you, right? So just and I'm like, I'm not gonna let that person try to hold like mess up my day. And I'm like, oh, okay, really, sure. And like great. And just like smile and nod. Like I've been really good about the smiling and nodding, like, okay, sure, right. I feel like that could get you very far, just smiling and nodding.
Totally. Especially in LA, because
Mm-hmm.
everybody's trying to, I'm not going to say everybody because I feel
But
like it's such
a
a
lot of it,
generalization,
yeah.
but it's a really good percentage of the population
Mm-hmm.
that will only talk to you because they think that you could do something for them, right? And if
Yeah.
you can't, then they dismiss you. And I was having this conversation with Shar the other day about how we live in a society that it's very dismissive of
Mm-hmm.
people. Like they just write people off. And it's so important for us to understand. And this is again why we're having these conversations, is that we're all the same, yo. We all have a heart. We all have trillions of cells, DNA, atoms in,
Mm-hmm.
we have a brain, we have eyes, we have no, you know what I mean? So like we're all designed very in a similar way, yet we all have a different role to play. But that doesn't mean that we have to just dismiss people just
Mm-hmm.
they don't think the way that you do, or you're not really bringing something to the table that they they need at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
And I
So
see a lot of that too, and it's so ridiculous because people will like write you off right away. And a lot of times when we would go out, I remember sometimes we'd go out and that'd be like the first question. People would be like, "Oh, so what do you do?" And it's not like even, "Oh, hi, how are you?" I'm like, "Oh, okay, really?" And usually I like to start my conversations are like, "Oh, hey, how are you doing? Like, let's find out about you," you know. And it's funny because like not many people do that sometimes these days to actually seem to genuinely try to understand how are you as a person or where you're at, you know, to see why people don't want to know, like maybe like if somebody comes at you with an attitude and nobody's wondering, they just automatically be like, oh, she's probably just she's a bitch, right? They'll probably like label you like, and you're like, no, did you ever think like maybe they just had a hard time and they're going through some shit? Like nobody asks those questions, you know. And those are the things too, like I feel like I've been able to get close to people at work because like I do ask those questions sometimes, like to get to know them. And it, like more so recently I feel like I've actually found a good core of people, and it actually is, I feel like it ended up being because I was working on a well blended show with very, it was a very multicultural show with like one of like my supervisors like half Japanese and like black, and then one of my coworkers was half Indian and Jewish, right? So like we had that connection, and it was funny because we actually felt like we could be ourselves at the workplace, and it was so nice to like be surrounded like with that core of people to just like we could like, I mean it's horrible, but we would talk to each other, like my friend AP and I, we would talk to each other in like Indian accents, right? But we kind of felt like we'd be like, AP, what are you doing? Let's go on a run, you know, like let's do this. But it was, I mean, it almost felt like we could only do it because we're both Indian, but like I guess like you get a pass to do that. But it was nice to have those moments and to surround yourself with people like that, because like, and I feel like yes, this is a horrible situation with like this whole pandemic, but it has also changed a lot of ways of how we worked. And also like, um, you know, we have, it has changed, like we are able to, like now I'm able to like work from home half the time at my new job, which is kind of great. But then it's like funny because like the whole like, sometimes the whole politics of work of like having to go in and everyone like having, it's basically, it was almost like sometimes your boss was there to like babysit you and watch you, but like if you just give me a task I could do it. Like I don't need people to like watch me do my job, you know. Like that's kind of like one positive out of this whole pandemic. Yeah, but
isn't it cool?
but it is definitely nice to be around a good blended group of people.
Yes, and it's an interesting because when you have that sense of awareness within yourself, right? And you've always been a very like optimistic, very friendly, you're very adaptable, and it almost takes that one person to break the ice so that other people have permission to be
Hmm.
the same, because I know that everybody's thinking the same thing, right? It's just that oftentimes it's really hard to break out of that mold where you do something different because everybody
Hmm.
robotic, right? Everybody does the same thing over and over again. And it's like, you don't, it's almost like you feel like you don't even have permission to be yourself. So when
Right.
one person does it, right? One person does it and you're joking and you're having fun, it really allows people to resonate with you and to just be able to like be free.
Hmm. It is, and it's just like, and it's funny because I've also worked in other places where it just felt so toxic. Like there was times where like we would get so busy and we would have to like go like secretly like eat because like for some reason people in the costume department don't like eating, and I'm like, well, I'm a I'm a thick brown girl, so I'm gonna have to go get my food. You know, I don't know about this like let's not eat until 5 o'clock situation. I'm like, no. I'm like, unless I'm all, because I'm not about to be that friendly with you if I don't eat. So like, it's like I've been in situations where like, and I get it, like everyone's so like trying to like get their work done, but it's like those kind of situations, they're not healthy and they don't bring good people out too. I'm like, you gotta feed your people, like let them eat, like you know.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is that, you know, in places like LA, people almost find that abuse
Mm-hmm.
as right? It's like you take on all of that responsibility. You don't take care of yourself because you're
Mm-hmm.
on a set of a movie where like you're starving to get paid, and
Mm-hmm.
yet you're really all you're doing is just being submissive to something that's not real, like that's not sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad that you do your thing and you go out and you do whatever you're
Yeah,
being
I
asked.
mean, you have to too, and like we're there for a long period of time, so I really definitely try to like make the most out of it. But it's funny because like Shar and I, like my sister and I, were talking the other day, and we are saying like there are moments too. You're like, what the hell are we doing? We're working so hard for make believe, and it's like sometimes you gotta like step away and look at the big picture of things and like be like, and like now I've actually grown to be a little bit more selective of the work that I do, to because if it's not really like a story that I'm like really into, because I've been on other shows that I'm like, I don't know, like I've been on shows with like it was very like military-esque and all these type of things, and like I stayed on there because I was thinking like, oh, I'm gonna get my union days so I could get into the union, and then like there's been times that I'm like, what am I doing? Like I don't really care about the script, and I don't really care about the stories being told. And then I realized those are the ones that like I was like, if I'm gonna make the most out of my time, like I don't really want to be at those places. And it's like that's when I've actually learned how to evolve and to like shape your environment. Because then if I and it was funny because I actually used to watch um Issa Rae show Insecure on HBO like religiously, and I always like thought like she seems awesome. I would love to work with her, and it was so weird because then eventually I met my my supervisor Sataro, and he ended up being the supervisor for Insecure, and I was like, wait, what? And it's just weird how like you really kind of think about what you want to be surrounded by, and then how things ended up happening. And like I ended up working with her, and it was funny, on my last day of working at Insecure I actually ended up talking to Issa Rae, and I was like, hey, I'm so happy to like finally have met you because I've always wanted to work with you. She's like, really? And I was like, yeah. And then she used to have these little events in like Inglewood in a basement, and my sister and I would go to these events, and it was like I told her, I was like, yeah, I used to go to your events in Inglewood. She's like, wait, what? When I used to be up in the basement? I was like, yes, girl. And then she was like, oh my gosh, thank God. Like, she's like, thank you for like supporting. And she was like super nice. And it was just like, it is kind of crazy when you actually really start, you know, believing in yourself and believing in the things that you want to do. And it just starts really just like exposing itself like, oh, it is possible. Like, it almost felt like I like kind of really just did some in the universe on that one. It was like one of those crazy moments.
Yes, you're so right. And it's almost like, you know, we talked about earlier how I told you about what Shar said, that it's hard to see herself in the light that I see her because she feels like she's so basic. And you know what I found? That a lot of people who are in the limelight actually feel the same way because majority of their life they've been in solitude, isolation. A lot of people have wanted them just for, you know, for a certain reason that wasn't really genuine. And so when you come across people that really appreciate your work because you know how hard it is to get to this place where you are in the flow, you're in the state of flow, you're a conscious creator, you're actually doing the things that you're being asked to do through divine like intuition, right? Because like I said, everybody's blueprint is so different, and oftentimes we're being guided by what's happening outside of us. We're
Mm-hmm.
not really tuning into what we're being asked to do intuitively. So when you connect with people like that and you're genuine in your approach, of course they're going to embrace.
Mm-hmm. And that's the key too. I actually feel like it's like even more so in the past few years. Like when I started to feel like more real and actually speak up about what I wanted, like things really started to come. Like I actually felt like, cause like for the past like 5 years, I've been working in costumes, and I've been wanting to get into the union, but then it just felt like it was like, I don't know if it's ever going to happen. Or people always talk about like, oh yeah, maybe you could get a day here, get a day there, like they try to keep you on board, and then nothing comes of it. But then it's just like, if you really like stick to it, and like when I started talking to one of my supervisors, and I was like scared about coming back to work during the pandemic, I was like, hey, here's the deal, like I'm down to like come and work for you if I actually, if you'll give me a chance to try to work my way to get my days. And then he was like, I get it. Like I was like, if I'm going to go out here to risk my life, I should try to be like getting something out of it. And I actually started feeling like, when I started to speak up, like I actually felt like things were starting to fall in place. But it's like, you have to speak up at times too, and especially being a little brown girl in Hollywood, because if not, like you'll be an assistant for a very long time. And like, and it's fine. I understand, like I had no problem being an assistant, but it's nice because I'm actually in the midst of getting my union days and actually being in the union now. But it takes some time to actually also gain that confidence within yourself, to actually start knowing your worth, or to actually ask and have those conversations, like to like level yourself up, right?
Oh my
So
God. Yes, that's so true. And how old are you now, Rena? You don't mind me
I'm
asking.
actually like 38 now. I know. I'm gonna be 39 at the end of this year in December. I know.
You look like you're 25, girl.
It's funny too, because some of my coworkers, they were just like, I thought you were my age, and they're like 25. I'm like, oh honey, no. No. But thank you.
Well, what's great about that, because I'm 36,
Yeah.
uh, and I feel like my life is just starting, right?
Yeah.
Like, and really, it is when you get to a level of confidence within yourself, and that doesn't happen overnight. That is
Hmm.
literally a journey in itself where you're experiencing, you're experimenting,
Hmm.
you're adapting, I mean, trying new things and really, really experimenting with hearing your own voice, right?
Hmm.
Putting yourself in spaces that make you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. It is kind of crazy, because like there's been many times where I felt so uncomfortable, and I was like, it just also like, I was like, I don't know. But it's also, in a way, it is good to have that uncomfortable feeling, because then you always know that there's always room for growth, right? Because you to make things like better, right? And because it's like, sometimes I feel like when you start feeling too comfortable, then it's like, I don't know, like then it also just becomes so boring and mundane too. Then it's like, okay. And like, that's why I do like doing things in production, or like working with new people all the time, because it's like, it's always keeps it fresh and new, like you gotta stay fresh.
You have to. And that comes with my next question. How do you stay relevant, unique, and true to who you are as a person, especially in the role that you play?
Hmm. Relevant and unique. Well, I don't know. I feel like I've just kind of been like, more so, I've just been trying to really stay true to myself. And I feel like I I actually feel like now in my 30s, I've grown to be like more okay with myself. Well, especially even more so with the pandemic, because like we had nothing but time for a while then to just sit with ourselves. And it's like, you realize like there really isn't much that you need in life, regardless of like how much money you're going to be making or anything like that. Like, if you got a roof over your head, you got some food on the table, that's all you really need. And like, um, you just gotta, when you take it down to the bare bones of things, it's like there's not much you need. And like, once you start being more grateful for the things that you do have, I feel like that's ways that keeps me like unique, I guess. Just you gotta just be grateful for what you have. And once you're able to do that, then you could do anything. Like,
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know what? I mean, just by looking at you too, it's you already have a very unique just demeanor, look about you. Not only the fact that you are brown, but then that you have Filipino and Indian descent, and then you've had the opportunity to travel to these places and see how people in other parts of the world don't really live off of much.
Hmm. Yeah, and you really don't need much. And it's so funny because when you go to these places, like especially like in the Philippines and in like India, they don't have much. And especially the Philippines, they were just like still so happy. They were like the happiest people. And it was just like so funny because like they'll just like dick around and like, like joke with each other, and like they'd always like have a smile on their face, and just like you realize like, and it's funny because like especially living in LA, like you'll have like little kids with like iPads and they're complaining that they don't have this game on it, or like little things like that. And you're just like, you don't need all that. Like, just like let your kid go outside and play. Like, give them some like vitamin C. They need the sun. Like, like it's just so funny when you see like the dynamics of like, that's why I really love traveling too. Cause then you realize also like how grateful you should be with what you got, because it's like you look at it, it is very, it could be very superficial here, especially in LA. Like, like everyone's always trying to one up somebody, like who's got the fanciest car, or the new Tesla or something crazy. But it's like, yes, like who wouldn't want nice things, for sure. And if you work hard, you definitely should be getting nice things. But I don't think having those things are the end all be all, and those things are what defines you as a person. It could be a small part of you, but it's not you, like.
Yeah, I agree with you because we've been created to to come to earth to live life more abundantly, but abundance doesn't necessarily have to be the physicalities of money. Money is just a resource. It's a tool that we circulate, and when we circulate it with divine responsibility, we're able to grow it to infinity. I mean, literally, it's just an exchange.
Hmm.
Believe that like true happiness and true wealth and true abundance really comes from what we have inside, what we hold in our heart, how we
Hmm.
treat people, and how we feel when we're doing what we do.
Definitely. And I feel like, yeah, and that's what I feel like is what you're saying before. That is one of the things that does kind of keep me unique, because it's like it doesn't matter like how much money I have, or if I don't even have much, like I still feel rich. Like I still like feel like I'm good. Like I'm okay with myself. And if once you start like being able to like trust yourself and like believe in yourself, then it's like almost like you are untouchable, and it doesn't, no money could buy that.
Exactly.
There's no dollar amount for that.
No, not at all. And that brings me to my next question because I think that there's a lot of people in our world that are seeking purpose. And, we talk about alignment, but do you believe that what you do today in your life, especially because it took you a really long time to even get to this place that you're
Hmm.
at, do you feel that you're aligned with a higher purpose and calling?
I do feel like it has been aligning a little bit more and more, but it's always continuing to evolve. Like um it's every day is a learning process. Like every day you'll learn something new, I'd hope. But it's like it's always continuing to evolve, like where you're at. Like even like now it's great, like I'm getting my days to like be in the union, but that's just one step closer to like I was saying like what you say before, and like about like, oh well, maybe I would like to eventually work my way into the writers room and be able to tell my true stories, like. And I know there's been times like my sister and I have always talked about like doing our own stories or having our own episodes on things. And it's like, I know like eventually I would love to tell a story about like how my mom and dad met, because everyone's like, how the hell did that happen? I'm like, a Filipino and an Indian, like how. I was like, was it the rice? Like, I don't know what brought them together, like. But like I feel like those are stories that should be told, you know, and I feel like now is the time to be told, because like I feel like people are actually willing to listen to people of color right now. And I'm hoping that like these stories can be told eventually, and those are things I would like to like work on, you know. And there's, and it's not only my story, there's a lot of people's stories that should be told, you know, and like that, of how people's upbringings are. And like, and it's like I'm so over seeing the same stories sometimes too. Like a lot of the things I have been watching has been actually with a lot of people of color, just because I'm like, it is interesting to hear other people's backstories than the same old song.
Yes. And people, I mean, one of the reasons why people watch reality TV is because they want something real. But
Mhm.
reality TV, what we see on the TV really isn't reality.
It's not.
And it really is important. I can't agree with you more, Rena, because I believe that brown people especially need to step up to, and it doesn't take a lot of money. I mean, honestly, I'm doing this production right now with,
I know, right?
and people are gravitating towards it because we're telling stories that
Hmm.
are real people, real results, real experiences, real philosophies, and people that are actually really doing what they feel called in their own like gut, right at
Hmm.
their gut, like this is what I need to be doing every single day, and we just need more of that.
Yeah, we
Do
do. We do. And it's funny because I feel like also like it's been a while since I like have written stuff or anything, and I like something just came over me, and I was like, and I just started writing a little bit, and I like about that story about how my mom and my dad like met, and it felt good to just like actually write and to like put those things in action, you know, because then it's like, you know, I really do feel like our stories need to be told. You know, everyone has a story to be told, you know, and it should be put on the forefront. And like, I'm over being in the back seat. Like, like,
yeah. And it's almost as though the puzzle pieces come together and they start to fit, right? Sometimes we don't really understand why our journey took us through specific paths. Because I know for myself, and I'm speaking for myself alone, but I am sure that you can really relate to this, is I mean, I've moved 17 times and I've moved by myself majority of the time. And having to adapt and even get into different career paths and, you know, work in different environments,
mm-hmm,
girl, often having conversation, like hundreds of thousands of conversations. Now in this place that I'm in, I'm like, it clicked for me. Like,
mm-hmm,
wonder why I had to go through all the things that I went through, because this literally has allowed me to get to this place where I can now share all these experiences and I'm living in it. Like, I'm
mm-hmm.
living in all the experiences that I had and the skills that I learned. I mean, girl, you
Yeah.
and R have been exposed to so much knowledge.
I mean, you have too, because I mean, you've also traveled the world just as much. And I remember you're like working in other countries as well for a while too. It's like, wait, what? Like, and like, we've all kind of been through all these different places in the world, but like, I feel like these jobs have taken us also to different places, but it's like, those were all stepping stones to get to where we're at now, right? And it's like, kind of like, we had to experience those things in order for us to like, you know, be where we're at now and to be grateful and to like take us to the next level, right? Because like I always feel like it is like a level up, right? Like, okay, then you're like, okay. And it's like it does make you who you are today. And I love that, like being able to travel and doing all those things, and even like going from different productions or just like, you know, working with other people, like it it's awesome though. Like you got to keep it moving, you know.
Absolutely. And I mean, we're a never ending evolution, right? So as long as we're here on earth having our human experience, we really can do anything that we
Hmm.
want to do. But oftentimes we are so limited by society's standards of success. And we think that we have to have all this money or all of these things that really in reality we don't. Like if we have a creative mind, which we all do, we have the ability to activate that. If we have the creative mind, if we have the experiences, if we're able to connect authentically, because I have asked, in fact, this month I'll have done like 19 conversations.
Wow. Wow, you were on a roll. Look at you just
Yeah,
jamming through. Wow.
yeah. I mean, you're number
That's
12.
wow.
Yeah, you're number 12, and people are so receptive to doing it because it's different. The questions, although it's funny that you said about this whole Oprah thing earlier because I've always been one to read. I love podcasts. I used to listen to Oprah since I was a little girl, actually. And I remember listening to Oprah's Soulful Conversations.
Yes, on Sundays. Yes.
And yes, and I love that podcast because she
Mm-hmm.
brings in people from all walks of life, different age groups, a lot of philosophers, but she used to ask questions like this. And I remember when Oprah started, it was not these
Mm-hmm.
these of these types of questions that really allowed people to self-assess, self-reflect, and
Mm-hmm.
correct their path as they're moving along. And so these questions are very relevant because in our day and age, we're not thinking about these things.
Mm-hmm. We're not. And it is always like so much on the surface level, like very short-lived like questions, and you're like, okay, that's great, but you're not really getting much out of it. Like sometimes like you see certain people having these conversations, you're like, well, that's not much to it. And you're like, but like these are the conversations that should be told. And like I feel like a lot of people are scared to like share themselves, but we shouldn't be. Like we this is how we learn to like know ourselves, right? And
This
it's
is
like,
how we Exactly. This is how we know ourselves. This is how we're able to really inspire others. This is how we're continuing to wake up every single day and feel like, you know what? I have a purpose to fulfill today, and I'm going to find the best outcome of every situation that comes at me.
yeah, definitely. I'm actually so happy that you're doing this too, because I have seen some of the conversations you had, and you're actually so good at like helping with the commentating and everything. You're so good with it, and I do feel like it does feel like it's very natural for you too, and like you could see that when people are doing work that they actually believe in, like you could tell, like,
Yeah.
and it's great. It's so good to see that.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. And you know what? These are experiences that, I mean, I've been on hundreds of interviews, no joke. I've been on interviews where there was a panel of people interviewing me, and I had to be like on it 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And even I noticed that these interviews that I was having, because I would apply for the job without anybody like helping me with the job oftentimes, and then I would get the interview, and once I got in to do the interview, I would get the job. And so it was always interesting to me how authentically connecting was so valuable in every
Mm-hmm.
stage of our lives. And I wouldn't have learned how to do that had I not gone out there and put myself like literally in the pit, like of wolves, right? Where,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these people that were asking me questions were asking me really hard questions, and it puts you literally, it forces you to level.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to be put in that uncomfortable like place, right? In order for you to really start questioning yourself as like, or sometimes they ask you questions like you never would have thought of, and you're like, wait, what? Like, what do you, I never would have thought about that. Like even some of the questions you asked, I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to sum all this up? I don't know. I was like, I'm just going to wing it and see what happens. And then and like I jotted down a few like bullet points, but I was like, I really don't know. I was like,
That's so funny because like a lot of people that have been interviewed though are used to having those types of interviews that are very surface, right? Like
mm-hmm,
you know what work you do every single day. You know what I mean? You go to the job and you know your role, right? But when it comes to self-assessment, that's something that's really important because it allows us to dig deep. And
mm-hmm,
also like when we start to when we start to question certain things, or even I remember, Rena, when I was in corporate, this was like right before I transitioned out of the fashion industry. I used to wake up with fire in the pit of my stomach. I had so
Mm-hmm.
much anxiety to go to work, and it would last like that, and I would work like 10, 11 hour days.
Mm-hmm.
I was always so stressed out. I was at my wits end with these jobs, and I was like, nothing's going to change if I don't change.
Mm-hmm.
And in order for me to change, I have to really get to the root of the problem. Where is this even coming from? So asking myself these questions and even writing them down consistently, and just being very in tune with what my body and my mind were telling me to do, and instead of like focusing on all the noise, because it's so easy to get infiltrated by the noise that's around us, right? Like by
Mm-hmm.
people's perspectives and other people's thoughts. So the point of these conversations is really to hear people's perspectives and to understand that everybody has different perspectives, and everybody is living out different life philosophies. But it kind of gives us an idea of, okay, like these people are doing this thing and I kind of feel the same way, but I can take this route.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And what is funny too was what you were saying about like going to into some of these jobs and having that feeling, like having that pit in your stomach and just like knowing. And it's like then you realize like after a while, like maybe those aren't the places like you should be, because I used to have that same feeling going into certain of my old jobs, and then I realized like, why do I feel this way? And it's like I don't know, like I feel like the places that you should be, like you shouldn't be having that feeling in your stomach, right? I mean, of course you're gonna get something out of that situation, but like that you shouldn't be having that feeling going into work, and I realized those are the places like I was never that happy at. And I was like, but I mean, like I said before, like you live and learn, that like it's just funny how you have that feeling when you go to some of those places, because I've had that same feeling of like going into work and you're like, I don't want to be
I don't want to be here.
here.
I don't want to see you.
I
I don't
know.
want
I was like, I'm cool off of you. I'm cool off of you. You don't need to say nothing. I'm like, there's always that one person. I'm like, was I even talking to you? Like, they always got to chime in. I was like, oh, okay, peanut gallery. So I don't miss the work politics. That's what I don't.
No, it's true. And we can say all we want that we really don't have a choice, in the things that we do, but we do. We do have a choice in what we do and what we're aligned with. And that's why it's so important to understand that we should be operating as a conscious creator. If
Hmm.
you're unconsciously doing things, you're literally a zombie. It's so funny.
Hmm.
I always reference like zombie movies as the reality of what our society looks like.
It's so true, and it's funny because like I was actually watching. I actually never watched this movie, but then my boyfriend told me about it. It was called like Idiocracy, and then we started watching it, and we're like, "Oh my god, I feel like that's what our society is going to be right now." Like, they're just like it ends up being just like a whole bunch of idiots just walking around aimlessly, and they're just like telling stupid jokes that have like no content. And you're like, what is going on? Like, it's just no.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's so funny because I mean, I've had the opportunity to live in places like LA, Chicago, Phoenix, and even like around the Kansas City area, and traveling to other. What I've realized about myself through my journey is that um I really appreciate like silence. I appreciate nature, and I
Mhm.
appreciate not really being around a lot of people anymore. And I thought I was a city girl because I loved the action, I loved the noise. And then after a while, it kind of gets like old where you can't even hear your own voice.
Mhm.
Uh, so that brings me to my next question. What practices do you implement to stay grounded and divinely connected to self, especially being in LA?
Oh gosh, and like it's so funny too because like actually prior to me moving to LA, I started to do like Bikram yoga or like, and that used to help me a lot. And then I wasn't doing it for a while. Then when I moved to LA, or when I first moved to LA, I wasn't doing it that much. And then I like finally found like a studio and stuff. And then I started going in, and like it's so important to have those moments to just like step away and to like actually feel like whenever I would do like yoga or any type of exercise, those were the moments you actually have for yourself because you're actually doing something for yourself. And like nobody could touch that, which is like great because then like the feeling that you get like afterwards of just like taking a moment to have those breaths, or just like who would have known just holding a few poses could like do a little something extra for you, you know, like because it really does change your outlook on things, and it really does help you like stay positive throughout the day, right? And then like yeah, yoga, and like sometimes we do meditation too. Like I'm definitely not doing it as much as I probably should be or I hope to be, but I know there has been times where like especially during the pandemic like last year, like actually like my boyfriend and I would have like a routine. Like we would actually make up our own routine since we there wasn't anything else going on. So we would like wake up in the morning, we would work out, and then we would like meditate. And that really like helped me, and I actually felt like I was in pretty good shape because we actually made up our own routine. Because even like some people I know, they've probably been feeling like really lost during this time, and they don't know what to do or not what to do with themselves. But it's like you could do anything. Like, you know, might as well spend that time with yourself and learn to be okay with yourself. And it was nice to have those moments to just like, okay, we could meditate, or we would do like a hit workout or something, but you still feel like so good. Like at least you did something for yourself, because like the rest of the hours throughout the day, like even when you start going back to work, then it's like, how much of that time what are you really doing for yourself? You know, because then you like my sister and I were actually talking about this yesterday. It's like sometimes we go into and you're like helping other people achieve their goals, you know, but it's like what how much are you getting out of the work that you're doing to actually achieve your goal, you know? Like so it's
Absolutely.
yeah, getting crazy.
And you know, you had mentioned that you're not meditating as much, and I always encourage people to look at meditation as a practice that you do throughout the day. And it doesn't have to look a specific way. Oftentimes people think that you like sit on the floor and you like
Mm-hmm.
do anything, right? Like you just, but it really is more so if you can find yourself in a meditative state in a
Mm-hmm.
brain that's noisy, that's the true meditation.
Mm-hmm.
You're able to really like focus in on stillness and
Mm-hmm.
breath, and understanding that you just being in that present moment and not thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow or even a few hours from now or even what happened yesterday, this morning. Bring yourself to what's happening right here, right now. That's a meditative practice.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I so believe that too, because it's funny because I know like a lot of people were like bummed because sometimes people want to go to church or do those things, but it's like you don't really need a church or, you know, a building or a place to be in that place. Like you could go within yourselves, and you need to trust yourself and just take that moment and take that breath. And like, yeah, especially amongst all the chaos, just taking that moment and like close your eyes and take that breath, like it could just like really like change your day. Like having taking those few moments for yourself, like everyone should be able to find a way to do that throughout the day for sure.
Absolutely. Well, just one deep breath alone, and imagine just doing three deep breaths alone has the ability to reset your entire nervous system. So, our breath is really what allows our body to function, and we're not even operating that, it's just happening. Our
Mm-hmm.
breath is literally just happening. So, the fact that we wake up with breath alone is all the abundance that we need.
Yeah.
With that we are able to really like think straight. We're able to, you know, nourish our bodies, you know, with the substance food that we really need or that our body's asking us for. We're just able to really be more in tune in all aspects of our life when we're just, yeah, when we're present, when we're on that meditative practice of breathing, of consciously breathing.
Mm-hmm. It's funny too because also for you saying about being present too, it's like I remember growing up, and I was actually my both of my parents would follow they would have like a teacher for meditation, and we would go to these programs. And as a kid, I mean, I've been going since we were like 6, but we wouldn't like go there and people would meditate, but he would always talk about like having this knowledge, and like there would always be like these secret talks about things. And as a kid, I'm like, whatever. And Shar and I would kind of just stick around on the side like at these programs. But then it's like as I got older and I'd go to these programs, I actually started to be more present and started listening to what he would say. And then as we become more curious about what is this knowledge stuff that he's talking about. But it's also just like having that knowledge about not what's around you, or like, but also having that knowledge about yourself. And then like it all click when I actually started being present and paying attention to what he was actually saying. And then I was like, oh, so this is what you've been talking about. And but it's like also it takes time, because you actually have to be in that place to want to be receptive to what's going around and going on, and to like take it in. But I mean, everyone has their time in order for them to actually get to that point to like take it all in. But once you do, it's like, oh, this is great. You have that epiphany, like, look at that, you know.
Yes. Yeah, and it does. It comes at the it comes when they say that when the student is ready, the teacher will show,
Mm-hmm.
and it will just make sense as though you're breathing, right? Like the words that are flowing out are just really resonating with you. It makes sense. You're not really distracted, and usually that's how you know when somebody is not really in alignment with you, is when you're just distracted by other things and you're not really tuning into what it is that they're saying. And so that's why presence is so important, because you
Mm-hmm.
really get to tune into the conversations that you're having, and environment is everything.
It is.
Environment is so important. That's why I ask about the circle of influence, because oftentimes we're influenced by society that's asleep. And then therefore we're sleeping, right? We're just
Mm-hmm.
being like zombies. And so when we're more in tune with how our circle of influence really impacts us, we start to make more conscious decisions about who we surround ourselves with, because we can't really remove our family from our life, right? But we can choose not to spend time with them, because at this point they're not really influencing us in the way that we should be
Right.
operating.
Yeah, and it's so important too to also be aware about who you have in your environment, who are the people that you keep close, because that does inadvertently affect you and your emotions and how you react on things. Because if like you're hanging out with a lot of negative people, that's probably going to start rubbing off, and you're going to start feeling the same way. And I felt that. I've had some people who are like always talking mad shit, and you're just like, God, like what am I doing, like why? And then like it ends up, and then you become a part of that cycle, and then it just continues to go. Then you realize like, wait, I don't even know that person that much, like I shouldn't even be talking that much shit about them either, like, like, or even like situations like that, you're like, you find yourself getting caught up in situations. And I realized like a lot of that to me, like I was saying before, like even like the work politics of stuff, I'm like, it's just petty sometimes, like, like to play favorites or things like that too, because then you're just like, okay, like just so then people can kind of like jump in on people. And it's like, it's not cool. You got to like stop the cycle somehow, and just like, and that really has to deal with the people that surround you too, like you got to keep good people around you. And especially at a time like this, you got to stay positive. Stay positive.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, there's a saying that goes that we are the sum of the five people that we spend the most time with. And we also, there's another saying that says our net worth is equivalent to our network. So it's really important that, we do always surround ourselves. And it's not necessarily, because again, when we talked about money earlier, it's not about the superficiality of money, right? It really is more so about being in alignment with yourself, and then that will come, the money
Mm-hmm.
will come, right? But our environment is including the conversations that we're having and the people that we're surrounding ourselves with. That's going to make or break you.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. Totally.
It
So
really
what
does.
kind of wisdom would you give someone that is seeking a deeper understanding of themselves?
I mean, I think it's kind of like what I've already been kind of saying, like I think, and this is something that I've continuously trying to work on too, and like it's easier said than done. But like also just finding ways to like start trusting yourself and start believing in yourself, because it's like when I started to actually starting to feel that way, like starting to speak up, like I do feel like those things start coming, like you can talk things into existence, like, and but you also have to take that time to like trust yourself and believe in yourself, or even just like take the time to jot things down of what how you would like things to be, even if you if even if it's not an ideal situation. Now think about things that you would like to do and find a way to like tailor it so it meets your needs, because like, I mean, yeah, my sister and I actually were having a conversation about these kind of things yesterday, and it's like, in the long run, just like do what makes you feel happy too, and like what makes you feel good, because like you shouldn't be going in having that feeling like you have that pit in your stomach, right? Like you should be doing something that makes you feel good, and I feel like everything does start like falling into place and things do start lining up.
That's good. That's the best advice that I think that anybody can get, because nobody really knows what you need.
Mhm.
You do. I mean, you can go to a doctor and you can tell a doctor what your symptoms are, and your doctor is going to prescribe you a medicine that they think is going to help those symptoms, but it's not really getting to the root of the problem.
Mhm.
So technically, we really, if we can eliminate doctors out of the equation, we could really heal ourselves, because
Mhm.
we're the only ones that live in our body.
And it's really like knowing thyself, right? And you have to really trust yourself, because like it doesn't matter how much you try to explain, like you know within yourself how you're feeling about a situation. You could feel that feeling even when you're around certain people, like, ooh, I don't know, they seem a little shady. Like when you're not around the right people, and you got to trust your gut, right? And just like trust yourself and be aware about your environment, because it really highly affects how you are going to be on a daily basis, like, no doubt, because I've been around some people and I've just like, no.
That's those vibes. Those are the the negative vibes, just the frequencies that we feel. I mean, it's all around us. It's inevitable for us to escape energy, right? Like, energy is what we are. And so when we're in tune with our own personal energy, like I always tell people, check your energy before you wake up, right, out of,
Mhm.
and before you step out of your house, because once you go and you surround yourself with other people, you're exchanging energy constantly, and you need to
Mhm.
know where you stand, right, to know that when you start to feel off, that it's not your energy, it's somebody else's, that you have the ability to transmute.
Exactly. And even being able to hear them out to find out what they're going through too. And taking the time to not only like give that energy, but to like take it into and being able to listen to others too. That also really helps, because I think sometimes even listening to others and hearing them out like can make the difference in their day, as well.
Yeah.
Like you never know, like you just like, but until you actually talk to somebody and listen and have that conversation, and like you got to take that time too. And it's taken me a long time to get to this point to actually like realize that. And like I've always been really quick to also like answer things and not actually really listen, but it's like that takes a lot of work too, to even learn how to like actively like listen. And I mean, that's still something I'm always working on as well. But I feel like when you are able to like sit back and also to take the time to listen to others, like it's good, because you're able to absorb what other people have to say, and then you're like, oh, okay, you can gain another perspective of things too, because like sometimes you could also be very much in your head, but it's also good to have those conversations so you could like sort things out, like.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it gives you a deeper understanding of why people act. I mean, it's so funny that you went to school for psychology, and it's so relevant. I mean, because if we understand the psychology of people's genetic makeup, right, we can have a deeper understanding of ourselves as well as be more empathetic when people are being assholes, right? Like,
Mhm.
because it when people treat you that way, it has nothing to do with you and everything to do with how they're feeling. So
Mhm.
you have the ability with I know how you are with your personality. You have the ability to shift the energy in the room just by cracking a joke or, just by having a conversation and understanding why these people are in this mood or why they're reacting and responding this way. And it just really makes for a better relationship with people.
Mhm. And it's funny too, because like I don't like sometimes I don't even consider myself funny, but I feel like actually sometimes I'm actually just telling the truth of what I feel is coming to me, or like just saying what comes to mind. Like I'm like, well, why are you being a bitch? Or like, I'll just be like straight up about it, and people think it's funny, but I'm like, no, really, like, why? What's up? Like, and then yeah, and if you just like say those things and like actually just speak up too, sometimes you gotta like not only listen but actually speak up then things will start falling into place, because it's like how else will anybody else know how you are feeling, because it's like no one's a mind reader, right? So
No, it's very true. And I am working on it just as much as you because like you learn a lot about yourself, especially when you work in different environments and then you start that process of self-assessing, right? You start to recognize that that relationship might have not gone that way if I would
right.
have been a little bit better in like understanding or even communicating my needs.
Or you're also not in the right place to actually be with certain people. Like I know I've had like past relationships, and my mindset, I was just like in a fucked up mindset, and I was just like probably not in a good place to be with anyone, like, but you yourself have to be accepting of not only yourself but of what others have to bring to the table too. And if you're not open to that, then it's just kind of like maybe you need to step back too, give yourself a moment to like wait to accept other people in your life or in your environment too. It's like
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. So good, Rena. I these are all my questions, and I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to connect and to dig a little bit deeper in the work that you do and how you are as a person and how you respond to things. And it's such an honor, one, because I know that you're just in the beginning stages of really your own mission, your own
mhm.
work, and how it's going to evolve, especially the work that you and your sister are doing together. It's really great to see. I got
Yeah.
the Shar sent me the short for Devotee, and I was just so proud.
It's so crazy, right? When you see something from like we had like nothing, and I just like we were like shooting it from my house, and like but you also got to be resourceful, right? You just work with what you got, right? Like I said, and we just like because that helps with the production value. Like let's just shoot here, right? So it's like, I mean, it was actually my old place where I was at, but it's so funny, like it is pretty cool to see it all come together, right? And like to for us when we first came out there to like Arizona, when you're there at the time to like scout things, it's kind of cool, right? To see
Yeah,
how production can come together, right?
my gosh. Yeah, and it's just so cool to be able to like say that I am aligned with people like you that are putting out work like this because it is so relevant. So if you are not, having the opportunity to see Devotee now, you will in the near future. It is a storyline about a spiritual guru who is out and teaching her ways to people and has like these people that gravitate towards her. And all of us really have the ability to be that spiritual guru, right? If we tap into our own needs and really understand what it is that we're here on this planet to do. So it is great to, to tune into people that are operating in their purpose, because this storyteller or this guru was really just out teaching the things that she had experienced for herself, and she was now showing others a way that it could be done, right? And you
Hmm.
don't necessarily have to take that on as your own storyline, but it's great to hear people's stories and to be able to relate to it and to know that you know what? This person's on this path and I'm on that right path too because I just aligned with her,
Hmm.
right? And she's doing it. So that means that there's a way for me to do it too.
Yeah, and also having those feelings, those moments of like not knowing what to do, and like I'm sure a lot of people have been feeling that way lately too, and just like that feeling of loneliness or being lost with, one of the other characters in the movie. And it's kind of nice to like actually like, everyone has those moments too when you might not know what to do. You might not feel like you have the answers, and that's okay too. Like you got to also realize like it's okay if you don't always have the answers, and you can sit with it and be okay with it, because not all the answers are going to come at once, but it'll all eventually like reveal itself.
The puzzle pieces always
The
come.
puzzle pieces will come together. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You may not even have to reach the 36, 39 year mark. It might
Okay.
not sooner. I am so grateful that you took the time to be here with us today. This is just the beginning of these conversations that are going to reveal so much about how people really live within their own lives and how they got to where they are today and how you can get on that path if you're not on that path, which you are on that path because nothing happens by accident and everything is happening in divine timing. Everything is happening the way that it needs to happen, regardless if it's a painful experience or not. When you are able to look at the upside of things, when you're able to look at things from a higher perspective and a higher vantage point, you recognize that you're exactly where you need to be and that you have the ability every second of the day to change your narrative, to change your perspective, and to change the trajectory of your life. So, with this, I leave you with so much peace and I'm sending you so much love, and I will see you soon. Peace
All
out.
right. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks. Take care.